Good evening, Littleton, and welcome to the Select Board meeting from Monday, September 14th, 2020. The board will begin this evening's meeting by entering into executive session. I will be recusing myself from executive session, but we'll be resuming with the board when we return to open session thereafter. If we could just have a motion from the clerk, please.
Oh, we can't hear him.
You're on mute, Paul.
What's that?
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay, all right. Move pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to A6, to consider purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair so declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and the chair does declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, roll call vote, please. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
I'm in favor.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. The board will now enter into an executive session and return to open session, hopefully by 6:30. Thank you.
Yes.
We are ready.
Yeah, hello.
Good evening, Littleton, and welcome back to the Select Board meeting for Monday, September 14th, 2020. We will begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'll begin by reading the agenda for this evening. We just did the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to have the organization and reading of the mail shortly. That will be followed by department board updates and requests. We have a police department appointments of Ilyas Abu and Ashley Shaheen, Elder and Human Services EHS Director, department update and request to use space for programming. And we have a update from the sewer working group. That will be followed by public input and members' updates, and followed by a special town meeting warrant and report discussion. We're going to hear from department board presentations of article submissions to the warrant. We're going to review the warrant, determine orders of articles, vote recommendations for preparation of town meeting report. That will be followed by a public hearing regarding Fallon's Wine and Spirits liquor license to consider cancellation under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 77. And then we will have a town administrator update regarding the reopening of town offices to the public and general updates, and then our meeting will adjourn. So if you could, Mr. Layton, begin with the reading of the mail.
For tonight's, we do not have any correspondences within the packet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And so next we have department board updates and requests. Do we have, I see Officer Bernard on the call.
Chief Bernard.
I mean Chief Bernard, my goodness. Hi, Chief.
Just get the motive.
Good evening, Court. How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good. Obviously, you saw my letter in regards to the appointment of Ilyas Abu. Ilyas was appointed as a part-time reserve officer, I believe January 30th meeting. We've since been able to obtain a waiver for Ilyas to work full-time with us. Great fit within the department. He's done all of his training already. His background investigation is already completed, so he's ready to go. This will be the position that will bring our department to 20 officers. This was the new hire that was voted on at last town meeting. So I would just like to ask you to bring Ilyas' appointment from part-time to now full-time.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Ilyas. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So if you'd like to maybe introduce yourself to the board and just tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, my name is Ilyas Abu. I currently live in Attleboro. I've been doing policing for almost 8 years. A few months ago, when I figured I thought paperwork, and I never thought I was coming back as a pregnant. So I'm the town of Livingston and everybody was given the opportunity. So I'm kind of looking forward to kind of moving from college police into working full time in the town. And this is a great community, and look forward to being part of this community and this department. Because everyone's been great to me so far. So I look forward to the next step.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comment from board members?
I'll just say that the fact that you've, I'll echo, huh? The fact that you've completed 2 of the academies, the State Police Academy and the, I think it was the Worcester State Academy. The fact that you've completed the 2 academies and almost 1,000 hours worth of training, plus the fact that you've got some practical experience in being a reserve officer in town, I think you're a great fit, and look forward to having you join our ranks.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the board?
No, just welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Perfect. Exactly, thank you. Certainly, welcome aboard. So do we have a motion?
Sure do, Madam Chair. Happy to, and by the way, congratulations, Ilias. I move that the select board vote to appoint Mr. Ilias Abou to a full-time police officer for the Littleton Police Department.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
Mr. Costa's an aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
So
And
weird being virtual.
I know, I feel bad because it's so much better when they're in the room.
Shake their hand.
Madam Chair?
Mr.
Madam
Glavy?
Chair? Aye.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
yes.
I'm just gonna say, I don't have to be at home every week, but I'm kind of treating this like the State of the Union address where one of us is out of the building in case the pandemic. Some of
Always
us feel
thinking,
like
Paul.
they're run the town,
You're in Air Force 2?
I'm in an undisclosed bunker, okay?
With high security.
Appreciate that, Paul, thank you.
We know who to blame if we're all wiped out.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so now we have Ashley Shaheen, our EHS director, I believe, on the call.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How's everyone doing this evening?
Good.
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 I just wanted to share an update on what the department has been working on presently and what we hope to tackle in the next few weeks. It's weird for me because I'm looking at this Zoom call and I see 2 pictures of me.
Get a Post-it note.
The Department of Elder and Human Services has operated differently since March 13th. We are continuing to place wellness calls, receive regular inquiries, and offering virtual programs. We are seeing new people who need assistance with errands, access to food, and technology. Virtual programming for older adults has expanded immensely over the past several months. And while virtual programs work for some older adults, there is concern that internet access and trouble to hearing and communicating on an online platform are causing isolation and lack of engagement. There is a need for in-person events. The governor says that older adults are safer at home, and while this is true, older adults are not safer from secondary effects of the virus, which have included significant mental and physical health declines due to the lack of socialization and the safer at home order. We want to provide older adults a safe option for those that choose to participate on-site in programs and activities. We are prepared to offer a hybrid participation model whenever possible, so older adults have the option to sign up to participate in person based on room occupancy limits or participate from their homes. To my knowledge, several council on agings in the network are offering indoor programming, including Lunenburg, Weston, Ipswich, Groton, Chelsea, Beverly, just to name a few. Those council on agings advise a slow, soft reopening of programs offered on site. Many suggest starting with 1 program once a week. Older adults participating in those programs are overjoyed to have some sort of routine back into their lives. EHS plans for expanded program will incorporate guidance from the Massachusetts Council on Aging website. Public health protocols and activities will be in compliance with the occupancy limits for the building. We do recognize the changes will affect the number of people served at one time. We are balancing the needs for our participants with our capacity and resources in hopes to service as many people as possible. Be working with Joe, Cheryl, the finance director, the fire chief, health agent Jim, town council, and legal to provide expanded programming in a safe manner. Most importantly, we do realize plans are fluid as the current situation is unpredictable.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ashley. I'm sure the board has had time to read over her, Ashley's memo. Does anyone have any questions or comments about it?
I have one question.
Sure.
So you just mentioned, it sounded like you were saying by starting up the in-person program, you might have to cut back or reduce other services. Is that accurate, or did I hear correctly or not?
May have misspoke. So right now for programs and services, Amy, our outreach worker, she does one-on-one consultation. So our department is open by appointment only at this point in time, and we have no programs on site presently.
Okay.
Okay, great. Any other comments from the board?
So we're leaning on virtual activities to serve in that.
So one of the things that we're working on, and this is where it involves Cheryl as well as town council, is to make sure that from an insurance liability standpoint that we're protecting, that we know fully as far as what the town's risk is, and then identifying how we can any risk that is potential for the town. To what extent we need to modify our waiver forms, which we have existing waiver forms for activities, just to make sure that we're modifying them as we need to for this COVID reality. We do, just like town hall, want to bring back some services. There's needs, and we're looking at what from a size perspective can work. And as Ashley said, it's going to be done in a careful and thoughtful and manner with the guidance from the fire and health service, Board of Health Services, our Board of Health Director, so that we can try to reintroduce and give people a level of comfort and make sure that we're doing things in a methodical way so that we can evaluate and make sure that we identify what is working, what isn't. And especially as we go into the fall and colder activities, we just want to be able to make sure that we put these systems in place so that participants also know how to come into town hall, what we're doing to protect them, and make sure that everyone can feel that we're doing this in a safe manner.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
Sure. Actually, I'm particularly happy to see in your memo on what you spoke to a moment ago, we referenced wellness checks, because it has occurred to me that for the population you serve, there might be a higher percentage who aren't, customarily tech savvy or online, and might, being alone might be an issue to begin with. I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to your efforts to connect with the people that don't find their way to you, because those are the folks that we really need to worry about. And be very interested in hearing how you approach that.
Yeah, I think throughout COVID, now we're entering into 7 months of the stay-at-home, safer-at-home order. It's really brought to light the fact that seniors are isolated and lonely, but also bringing in the fact that this is across all generations. So maybe now there's more insight in terms of how seniors feel day to day. But I know the team here here even before I've started that they've been really proactive in reaching out to seniors in town by the wellness checks and the phone calls, so the direct outreach. Aside from that, I think it's important to build on the relationship and the partnership that we have with LCTV, because if folks aren't able to Zoom into a program, it could be appearing live on cable. So really strengthening and developing the relationship that we have there. And I think it's just a matter of knowing where people are in terms of finding the information and making sure that we get the information there. The website is also always up to date, and the Facebook page, and we're thinking of outside the box ideas such as drive-through events just to see people and check in and how they're doing. But the real ask here is seeing what the possibilities are for indoor programs, providing that we stay within the guidelines and the recommendations.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Ashley, thanks for the update. The question I have is, this is great. I think it's, great to be proactive and to be looking at opportunities. Having gotten a few weeks essentially under your belt, what have you identified any areas that we might be able to help you out with, or is there anything you've identified that we should be anticipating as an ask down the road, just so we can have as much preparation as possible?
I think the biggest ask at this point is just having your blessing in terms of organizing programs, outdoors, indoors. Obviously, we'll start on a smaller scale, putting into place all the plans that we have here. I don't know, Joe, if you want to jump in here. You kind of spoke to it earlier in terms of liability concerns.
Yeah.
But just knowing, too, that the vulnerable group, which we all
Sure.
acknowledge, but at the same time, they're also older adults. And I know the group is really eager to look forward to something and to see people. It's very different seeing someone in person versus participating on an online platform, if that is even an option for the older adult.
I was kind of gearing that more towards the fact that you are new to Littleton and you've got experience in other communities. If there might be something that you've identified that we don't offer or we don't provide currently, if that's something that you would need to fund or, that kind of thing, if you've identified any areas that we might be able to plan for and help you out with.
Not at the present moment, and I appreciate the gesture. I know the Council on Aging has a friends group, so certainly leaning on them to get some of the programs up and running, and maybe manpower and volunteers once we get everything into place.
Okay.
All right, great. Any other questions or comments from the board?
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley.
Yep, appreciate it. So do we have a motion?
Hold on, let me find it.
I got it, Paul.
You do, all right, great.
Move that the select board vote to allow the use and programming of the courtyard and multipurpose room for EHS/COA with consultation with Regional Board of Health Director and the Fire Chief.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and all those in favor, Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
In favor.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. Glavy?
Yes.
And Cindy Napoli is yes, so the motion is approved as written. Thank you very much, Ashley, for getting this started, and let us know if anything else comes up that you feel you may need.
Right.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you everyone for your support.
You
You're
bet.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have a sewer working group update.
Yes, and I just elevated Nick to panelist, and he as well as Ivan are with the board.
Great. Good evening.
How's it going? I think you wanted Bruce, Joe, not Ivan.
Let's see. He should be coming in a second.
Okay, I just stopped the update without him. It's my weekly moment in front of the select board, giving an update on sewer, how lovely.
Can always send your son.
I know.
I stayed at work this time, so we don't have any interruptions. Another week of hard work from the working group. I know I say this every week, but I think it's important to mention them. They do a lot of work trying to move this project as fast as they can, so thanks to the working group. We were hoping to have finalized numbers last meeting from our consultant engineer, CDM Smith. They weren't able to give us the numbers that we wanted. We're getting them now on Wednesday, so I was kind of hoping to have a more detailed update for you, but I don't. Wednesday, I'll have final numbers, and my board will be discussing those on Wednesday night. But from an overall standpoint, we're in a very good spot. We have 3 sites that are being evaluated right now, being appraised by the town's appraiser, John Avery. So we have 3 sites that we believe a plant could be sited at. We went through all sorts of different scenarios as far as how to sewer the town. And like I said before, we really took a holistic view of sewering in Littleton. And, we kind of now, well, not yet, but soon we'll have a master plan for sewering for this community. Something that won't be implemented obviously on day one, and I think that's been our biggest struggle with CDM. We're trying to implement phase 1, and they're pushing out really it's about 4 phases to the plan. So we looked at, centralized sewer in Littleton. We looked at decentralized sewer, which means to be more than one plant. We looked at a quirk. We looked at regional solutions. And, the sewer working group, and keep in mind, this hasn't been vetted by my board yet, so things could change. So, Bruce is on the sewer working group and has been in alignment with what the group has been thinking. We're heavily leaning towards recommending to our board of commissioners on Wednesday night a centralized sewer solution with a plan at one of those 3 sites. There's Bruce. So I don't know, Paul, if I really missed anything.
No, I would underscore what you just said, Nick, and just say the CDM, you're right, it's a little frustrating. We were looking for we're most focused on the more immediate numbers for the first phase, and they did indeed produce numbers for for a larger conceptualization. We didn't need them to bore down and show us the first phases, but hopefully, as you say, by midweek, you guys will have those numbers. The site selection too, I don't know when you're gonna feel comfortable talking about specific sites, but I mean, I'm aware of them through the working group and through conversation with you there. I think there's sites that would all be acceptable to the town, and you have to do your due diligence as far as cost and other factors. But a lot since January, effectively, when you took on, you got your engineers engaged till now, has been done. You just read through the checklist, but there's a lot of detail behind all of that both reviewed and improved upon the engineering work that, or the work of the previous engineers we had on board, and also explored a lot of options that people have talked about, but have never really been investigated fully. So, I've always been bullish on this project, but I think we can stay with even more confidence that when we come forward with the numbers and the ask at town meeting, that we're in even a stronger position in terms of knowing be ready to answer questions that people have had historically and feeling comfortable this is the best route forward, and and that's in good hands, both in terms of the engineers and in terms of it being run out of the the water department.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Bruce, wanted to add, I see you there, but you want to add anything from the commissioners? Good to see you, Bruce.
Good, glad to see you as well. Basically, we've come from the 30,000 foot view. We're down to we're closer to an answer. We whittled it down to 3 or 4 different possibilities that both you and Nick have intimated. I will go in front of my board Wednesday night and suggest our favorites. I'll bring the working group's assessment of what we found out through our engineers CDM, and hopefully we'll come to some kind of a consensus, and we'll be able to move forward and get you guys a little more a little more information. Unfortunately, the timing of these two meetings probably could have been a little worse, but not much. So that's basically, I'll be able to give you more after Wednesday night's meeting when I get the board to vote on all this stuff.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? No?
Just one further thought occurred to me, Madam Chair. Can I ask a question, Nick?
Sure.
Sure. Nick, is it fair to characterize that while we're not throwing a number around here now, that the likelihood is that the first phase number is not dramatically different from what we were anticipating going into it?
Yeah, it sounds like a setup. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but this project has shocked me several times so far on this. But yeah, I mean, I think that $30 million number that was talked about by Weston Sampson, I don't think it's gonna be too far off from where we are, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bruce and Nick, for the update. Appreciate it, and Paul as well.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are on to item number 4, public input and members' updates. Do we have anyone for public input, Mr. Lee?
Yes, we have Jennifer Fife.
Good evening. If you could just begin by stating your name and address, please.
Hi, Madam Chair. My name is Jennifer Fife. I live at 9 Sleigh Ride Lane.
Good evening.
Calling to speak about the construction going on at the 9 Air Road site. I sent a letter on Friday to the board. I don't know if you guys all had a chance to read it. We've been on calls earlier this year regarding all the soil removal and other issues that were going on at this site. I know some things have been resolved as far as the soil removal goes, and there was some dust monitoring. But I have to tell you, this summer has been dreadful for us in this neighborhood. There has been shaking to the point where my monitor and computer are visibly shaking. The whole house is shaking. My son was concerned what was happening. Just the amount of noise and disruption in our yard, the trucks and the pollution going into the air that I could see. I took videos and sent to the town administrator of smoke, dust, and dirt billowing into the air right behind my property. It's just the dirt that's coming onto our pool that we constantly have to vacuum and wipe down. And just the fact that my children are playing in the backyard and hearing this noise and seeing this, it's just very frustrating for us that this is commercial work is going on this site, and it's a residentially zoned area. This is a residential neighborhood with commercial work going on. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. The fact that this could possibly go on for another year is just so disturbing to me and to my neighbors. It's the amount of noise and dust. It just seems like a very unsafe area to be in a residential area. And I think there's just things that I hope that I'm really asking the board to look at to help the residents that are right abutting this area in this construction site. I mean, are there ways that we can shorten the time frame? Can we have them do the mining off-site? Because this is a mine that is operating. There's a sign that says it right at the entrance of the construction site saying that it's an active mine site. And this is in a residential zone. What are the determinable dust amounts and smoke? What is the pollution allowed in a residential zone, not in a commercial zone, because this is a residential zone. So, I'm just kind of pleading to the board to see what we can do to help us as neighbors and residents of this town to alleviate the kind of struggles and pains that we've been going through with all this construction and development behind us.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I appreciate your sharing those comments with us. I'm concerned to hear that it's getting worse and not better. I know that we had put in, I thought, specific mitigation measures, and we were going to be doing more stringent monitoring on that site. So maybe, Mr. Layton, I don't know if you have any comments or updates?
Sure, and I've passed along the comments also to the building commissioner as well. One of the challenges is that the standards that were put in place in the permit, which are pretty measurable standards, even though they're being complied with in the reports that are being submitted to my office as well as the building commissioner's office, is that they can still have a significant amount of impact while not triggering those thresholds.
Okay.
The 10 decibel increase is essentially a doubling of sound. So you can have a sound that increases significantly but not be a doubling of sound and still have it impactful. So there is an opportunity perhaps to either talk with town council or to have a side conversation to find out, like, what is the time frame. If we've established in the permit a date where activities are supposed to end, they should be able to provide an estimate where they are along that timeline. And that would be an opportunity to engage the people at 9Air to find what progress are they making towards that goal, because just like annual town meeting in May, June is going to be here before we know it, and we're going to know whether or not they're behind schedule or above schedule or ahead of schedule. So it probably is worthwhile checking in to see the progress that is being made. But I think that one of the challenges is, outside of starting up a dialogue, is those standards, which were pretty specific in the permit, to what extent we're able to have a discussion along modifying those to some extent.
Right. Okay.
Can I speak again?
Certainly.
Thank you. I think the biggest problem that seems to be causing, and this, I've never experienced this before, but is the mining. And I guess, like, I'm so concerned as to why they are allowed to do commercial mining in a residentially zoned area and in a residential neighborhood. And can this be taken off site so that we eliminate a lot of the issues that are happening? Maybe that would alleviate some of the problems, but I just keep struggling as to, this is an active commercial mine in a residential area.
Right. Mr. DeCoste?
Mrs. Fife, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We did, Joe did share your communication with us as well, and before last week's meeting, we did have that, and I think some of us took some actions, went to the location. There's a couple different comments I wanted to make relative to it being removing the mining portion, as you call it, off-site. The mining is actually the obtaining of the material, so it's in order for the material to be obtained, it's going to disturb the earth that is currently attached to. So the processing of that material is something that could potentially be looked at to be done off-site. We have certain stipulations that we put upon them, conditions that we put upon them in the permit. We rely on different professionals that work for the town as a whole. The building commissioner being one of them, certainly Joe, Board of Health, and our zoning board of appeals. And I know that the zoning board of appeals did opine that this is not a commercial operation. So we, as a town, now operate under the premise that this is not a commercial operation. I don't live next to it, so I'm not going to say that it doesn't look and feel like a commercial operation, but that's one of our boards in town that has made that opinion that it's not a commercial operation. Relative to when you the letter that you sent out, it was about a week and a half ago now, I think. It seemed like there was a lot of operation with bulldozers going on, which certainly were closer to Sleigh Ride Lane than they were to Ayer Road, moving the earth in order to based upon my interpretation, create the berm, which ultimately will give some sort of screening for yourself and for your neighbors. Is it your opinion that since a week or so ago, it's gotten worse?
Last week was probably one of the worst weeks we've
Right.
had. The last 2 weeks have been really, the noise. I mean, one of my neighbors had texted me. He's like, I just took Trevor out for a walk, who's his 18-month-old. He's like, I could not believe the noise that was and how loud it was. So I would say the last 2 weeks have been probably, like, I just kind of hit my limit these last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm
Sorry for
done
that.
with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as appealing to us and what we can do, we can reach out to the building commissioner, we can ask him to make sure that the monitoring is being done and that, the monitoring is.
Are some of the noise parameters put in, are they for a commercial site, a mining site, or are they for a residentially zoned area?
I don't think it's differentiated. I'm not certain of that, but I don't think it's differentiated. Right, Joe?
Correct.
I mean, I think we can review the standards. If the standards that we have in place aren't sufficient, maybe we can just take a look at them and see what else we can change, and
And I think
modify.
just shortening up the time frame, like this is, I can't, if I have to go through another, like, 10 months of this, it's just so disruptive to our lives.
Right.
And my neighbors, I mean, it's not just me I'm kind of representing, but it just doesn't seem safe either. Like when I'm seeing what's going into the air and we have my children and my neighbors' children are playing right there. So little girl swimming in my pool and I'm taking a video of this smoke and dust just billowing in the air. It's just, it just doesn't seem right and okay in residential.
Right.
It's right behind my house.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe, yeah, absolutely.
So, is there a time of day that it's, I mean, it's probably tough for you to nail that down, but I'd be willing to take a ride up there and take another look and see what's going on. I'll come in from the Sleigh Ride Lane side. If you wanted, you and I could set something up, I can reach out to you. I've got your email address from the letters to see if we can set something up, if there's a time that's better, or just to try to better capture what you're feeling and what your neighbors are feeling and experiencing, so that we can see if there are other parameters that we could potentially put in place. But, I don't know that there's any satisfaction that we can give you right now based upon what we have in place. So if me coming up there, I don't want to make any false promises, but, or any one of us coming up there, I'd be willing to do it, just something, I've got some free time during the day.
Yeah, anyone's welcome to come. I think it's hard to nail down a time or it's because I think it depends on your work. When it's worse a certain time of day, certain days are worse than others. But as a whole, it's just very disruptive. I mean, I sent videos of some of the noise.
Right.
And of the smoke. So those, and I'm happy to send more. I took a video when my house was shaking to the point where I actually took a video of the monitor because it was violently shaking.
Right.
So I'm happy to put together a video montage as well. But you guys are, anybody's welcome to come. I wouldn't, to come see. Again, I just can't nail down time. But
It would be interesting to see
what's.
right, it'd be interesting to see what's happening on site when that is happening at your home, in my mind. So, Jennifer, certainly appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and we certainly will look into this further. We'll talk to the building commissioner, we'll talk to the operators, and, Mr. DeCoste said he would visit your neighborhood. I will certainly, follow up as well and see if we can just put some correlation together between what you're experiencing in your home and what's happening on the site, and see if there's any other mitigating measures that we can put in place to help alleviate this. I certainly do empathize with you, and, you know, that it's disruptive to the quality of your life. It's just, it's unfortunate. So thank you, you know, for continuing to bring this to our attention, and I don't want you to feel that we're not going to address it, but we will certainly follow up in some manner and see what else we can do.
And sometime this week, I'll take a ride up to it.
Okay.
I just don't know what day it will be.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
So we have two others. We also have Carrie Johnson. I believe she's speaking about the same item.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Mullin.
Hello?
Hi, good evening. If you could, well, we see your name. If you could just provide your address, please.
For in Right Lane, and thank you for the opportunity to just provide some input and for listening to us. I just wanted to echo Jen's concerns. I don't want it to appear as if just Jen is the one that is experiencing this. And I think that it would be helpful if we could have some updates in terms of the time frame. And I know you mentioned that earlier. I think it's with all of us working from home, it's just becoming very disruptive. The shaking the last 2 weeks, my 5-year-old came running in the house screaming while I was trying to conduct a work meeting, and I thought she had hurt herself. The shaking was so bad. So it's just impacting all of our daily lives. And as Jen said, the thought of this continuing for 10 months is just not sustainable in a residential area. So just thank you for listening to us. And just, Jen, yes, it's representing the neighborhood, but if you came in and spoke to all of us, it's impacting all of us. And just if you're listening.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last person we have, Ivan Pagasic. Pagasic.
He's been called worse by me.
Good eve. Oh, why it says Edmond.
Just kidding.
Good evening, Ivan.
Good evening. I have a short statement I'd like to read to the Select Board. Board of Water Commissioners would like to address comments made during your meeting on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. As you are aware, our General Manager was before you regarding House Bill 4866 to discuss changes to the Home Rule petition. Select Board member Mr. Nordhaus made several comments that we feel need to be addressed. First, Mr. Nordhaus stated that he was uncomfortable with the land swap from the beginning, and that he saw Article 97 protections in the deed. In fact, there is no reference to Article 97 in the deed. We feel that Mr. Nordhaus is misleading the Select Board and the public with this comment. Second, Mr. Nordhaus claimed that at the Fall Town meeting in 2019, in which, as a reminder, the town overwhelmingly supported our project with a 94% favorable vote, he stood up and stated that the process of gaining legislative approval would take 6 months. Again, this is another false statement, as he actually stated at town meeting that it would take 14 to 24 months. As we are all aware, the process has been impacted by COVID, but our legislators are working tirelessly to move the legislation forward. Finally, Mr. Nordhaus commented on requesting more transparency with this process. For the record, we have publicly discussed this project in 26 Board of Commissioners meetings, 4 Planning Board meetings, and 3 town meetings, plus Conservation Commission, Select Board, and Finance Committee meetings. In addition, we have done outreach on LCTV and through our newsletter. Mr. Nordhaus has neither attended a single one of our meetings to discuss this project, nor has he ever reached out to our General Manager requesting information. In fact, at an earlier Select Board meeting where we had come before you regarding the Home Rule petition, Mr. Nordhaus did not present any of the concerns that he presented on September 8th. Instead, the only time that Mr. Nordhaus voiced his opinion was at a meeting that coincidentally was attended by legal counsel for the abutters that have sued the town. We are unaware whether Mr. Nordhaus has disclosed that his wife worked with the litigants to oppose the Home Rule petition at town meeting in the spring of 2019, or that he in fact had signed a petition to designate the land on Wickham Ave as conservation land, which undercuts his stated position that the land is in fact subject to Article 97. Accordingly, we would like to know what interaction may have occurred between Mr. Nordhaus and the litigants and/or their counsel. In the interest of transparency, Mr. Nordhaus should have at least disclosed the fact of his interest, let alone considered not participating as a select board member. A matter in which he and/or his family have expressed interests that are clearly adversarial to those of the towns in ongoing litigation. There isn't a board or committee in town that hasn't supported this project unanimously. Our department staff has been working extremely hard to solve water issues in our town, issues that have presented challenges not seen before in our town. Our board is proud of the service that our staff continues to provide day in and day out. Moving forward, we would appreciate it if Mr. Nordhaus could refrain from making public misstatements that impugn our efforts to address the serious challenge currently faced by the water department and the citizens of Littleton. Respectfully, the Board of Water Commissioners. And Madam Chair, I'd like to email this to you and our interim town administrator for the record.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Begasic. So I don't know if you have anything you want to say in response?
Let me just, I'm not going to address all of it, but regarding the transparency, I stated in my statement last week that I stood up at town meeting, and I think it was pretty clear to everybody in town how I felt about the land swap, and as far as my relationship with anyone, the litigants, I know Robert Otto and I've spoken to him. I'd say he's an acquaintance. I have never met or spoken to the lawyer. I didn't even know what his name was until he called in last night. I have no interest in the land. I have no interest in monetary or otherwise in anything that's going on. And I wholeheartedly support the construction of the water treatment plant on the new spot. I think everyone agrees that it's a better spot. As I stated earlier, my only objection was the way that I believe the way that it was presented to the town. And so there's a lot of other stuff in that, and in your statement, which we can debate. I've read the deed, the grant. The grant does reference Article 97 specifically, and my comment that night was that the EEA appears to believe it was protected as well. So, but I've said that already, and that's all. But thank you very much for the response. I appreciate it. I mean, we got to talk about this if we're going to get through it. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Begasic. We will certainly, I just want to respond, just in general. It's important for boards to work together and collaborate together, especially on important initiatives, such as the sewer project, the wastewater treatment plant. I think one of the things that I've seen, and I've had comments made to me recently, is that the town people are beginning to recognize, other employees are beginning to recognize that we are all working together. And I think it's important that we maintain those important relationships, because that's how we're going to move initiatives forward in the community. And I think as members of the board, as members of the select board, one of the things that I learned when I first came on the board is it's, people will approach you and they'll say things to you, and it's really important to do diligence and your own homework, and not take what someone might say to you at face value, but also avail yourself to the opportunity to go and attend a meeting and talk to someone directly and be able to voice your opinion, your thoughts or concerns in that manner, rather than just coming forward and saying something in a meeting that might be misconstrued or might create a difference of public opinion that might not actually be a correct representation, I guess is my point. So, Mr. Begasic, thank you for bringing that forward, and looking forward to seeing that project move forward. Is there any other comments?
There is only one other from Shapona Jayaraman.
Hey, my name is Shobana Jayaraman. I live in 8 Slayride Lane, and I'm here to talk about the Fields project again. We have already brought this a couple of months before in the Board of Selectmen meeting, and we would like to bring, I would like to bring it up again. Of course, you would have heard from my other neighbors also. I did recently send a mail to the town administrators, but I did not even get a response. But the grievance here is, again, it is very disruptive to our normal life. It's very, the dust is, it's, I don't know, I wish somebody comes and lives here or stays here around for a day to experience what we are going through and know what is happening. 2 weeks before, it was really, really bad. The house was shaking all day. Of the big machinery, the noise of the big machineries, it was so disruptive. And both me and my husband, we work from home, and it was so loud that our calls got interrupted, our business calls got interrupted because of all that, because it was so noisy, and it was really very, very close. Those machinery were really very, very close to our property. So, of course, we've been complained about this many times. I wish Board of Selectmen team takes this really seriously and does something for us, remediate something, give some remediation from this whole thing. It's been going on and on and on. I don't know when it will be done. We wish there is some end of this tunnel, seriously. So that is what I would like to raise here today. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, it's something we'll definitely have to follow up on.
Yeah, like I said, I'll head up there
Right.
a couple times this week. And,
Right.
I mean, it may be something that the type of equipment they're using, they may be using a D7 dozer or a D5 dozer. It's not as big a piece of equipment. It doesn't shake the earth quite as much. There may be things that can be done to help mitigate.
I'm just trying to-
I don't know.
And one of the challenges, and this is, like, when I went up, you could hear material being loaded, and it was loud, but I didn't see the dust. Ed texted me while everyone was talking and said he stopped by the site today, and they only had one piece of equipment that was operating and no gravel processing. That unfortunately is...
Good days and bad days.
Exactly. And so sometimes we literally have to try to catch it. And, you know, we, if something is going on, drop myself or Ed a call and we can come out and take a look. That may be better than just trying to stop by when we're on our way to a site or a meeting and we may or may not catch things.
I'm just trying to think of what would cause a house to shake.
A dozer scraping the earth will cause the earth to shake,
Wow.
depending upon the size of the dozer.
Right.
You've done a lot of excavation
Okay.
and site work, so.
All right. So we'll,
And I think after, I think we got a letter from both, I mean, the last woman as well as Jennifer.
Carrie.
And I think that it appeared to me that they were trying to create that earthen berm, which is as close to the residential property on Sleigh Ride Lane as you can get.
Okay.
Because they want to create that berm as far away from the property they're developing. So they're trying to create like a mound, essentially, like an earthen berm. And I think they were trying to move as much earth as possible that way. That's what it appeared to me. But I can go up there and I'll probably put a call into Mr. Field and see if he might be able to meet me up there tomorrow. I mean, maybe I'll stop up there and then call him, so people don't think I'm.
okay.
I don't know
So-
what the right thing to do is, but
We'll follow
certainly give
up
it some
on it,
attention
yeah.
and see if, with Mr. Mullen stopping up there, it's good to hear. It's kind of a tough situation, and we can
Right.
just try to mitigate it as much as possible and try to make more good days than bad, I guess.
Right. Okay, is there anyone else for public input, Mr. Layden? Okay, so on to members' updates. Do you have anything, Mr. Knox?
Nope.
Mr. DeCoste?
I don't.
Mr. Milhouse? Mr. Glavy?
I do not.
And neither do I. Oh. So, well, so no members' updates. Okay, so we are now on to special town meeting warrant and report discussion.
You guys mind if I
No, that's fine.
Gotta go.
So we're just gonna bring in
I can sneak behind you, Matthew.
some people.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Catch up to you tomorrow.
Okay, good night.
Night, guys.
Night.
Good night.
Mr. Lane, did we get a different version of the warrant than what's in the packet?
See ya. Yes. So, what was emailed to the board and what is in a packet that was updated this afternoon is actually what we're referring to as version 15, which is really what we consider as the final version.
Okay.
So within that version, it's basically corrections that Cheryl, the finance director, had identified, and it's all wording. And some minor edits that town council had. So it's basically from our perspective, town council's perspective, outside of numbering and then also answering or having staff answer questions of the board, we consider this in its draft, its final form, ready for then renumbering and maybe moving around the order a little bit. We do have a specific request from Light and Water to have the PFAS article as the first article out of their bunch. So it does look like people are starting to be brought in as panelists. Just making sure all of the staff is going to be there. I'm just adding 2 more. So basically, as we discussed last week, especially with somewhat of a compressed town meeting, special town meeting calendar for this coming October, there's some typical housekeeping articles, paying prior year bills. The board last week had voted to place all of them on, but wanted departments to come back just to present and give an update. Departments also provided written update memos in the packet. And as we go through, we can basically just identify if we wanted to have, say, LCTV just provide a little bit more detail. Article B is one of those housekeeping's prior year bills. Within the town meeting, the special town meeting report, those will be itemized and identified within the motion that we'll be reviewing next week. Last week, we took a look at the amending the FY 2021 operating budget, as well as then the capital budget, and both Finance Committee and the Select Board had voted to submit those articles. Next up was the Littleton Community Television article to transfer $50,000 from the receipts reserved for appropriation of the Public Education Government Access and Cable Related Fund. This one, not only did Mark Rory provide an explanation of that, there was also follow-up questions that I had received from board members explaining or requesting a little bit more information about this. Mark is available if the board would like to ask questions as far as the funds and how things relate to the library, especially since the question is, why isn't this part of the library project, as opposed to what is essentially proposed here, a separate funding project through LCTV's funds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Layden. I don't know if Mark's coming out to respond to that.
Did you want me to come out?
No, No, well,
If you don't have questions, I'll stay in my room.
yeah, I mean, I just did some homework. I mean, at first I wasn't sure where this came from, because I know we had talked about a meeting room.
Right.
Wasn't thinking that we would fully equip it with, LCTV, control panel and cameras and whatnot. And then just the funding, Mr. Layden explained to me better, the funding source and how that would work and where the money was actually coming from. I just was surprised when I saw it, because I just didn't remember it being part of the project. And then just to see it come up, it just kind of threw me by surprise. So, but I understand now, after speaking to Mr. Layden a little bit better about it. So I didn't know if the board had any questions or comments about it, that particular funding request.
No, very straightforward.
Yeah,
Now that it's explained, it makes complete sense.
yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
So and then also Article F, which, thanks to the board for actually floating the question as far as what is this article, giving the impression originally that maybe it has an impact on not doing dredging at Mill Pond. Within the board's packet was a memo that Corey Godfrey had submitted that basically identified that they anticipated additional engineering costs within that Article 8 from 2018, and that the grant had covered the full amount, so that engineering cost was not needed. The work will be continuing. We do have Nick Lawler available to answer more questions if the board had questions on that specific item, because I believe it was Select Member DeCoste and maybe even Select Member Glavy had asked and had indicated they had received comments and questions about when the dredging was going to happen, and wondering if this had an impact on that.
Right.
You want me to answer that? I mean, I think Joe did a pretty good job, and Corey outlining the need for this article. The dredging is still being planned on happening. I think Corey touched on this in the memo to you guys as well. Yeah. So I believe it's spring of next town meeting, spring of next year, that he's hoping to move this forward. So this was really just more of a cleanup article. It didn't really impact the project.
Okay.
I don't think I specifically had a question on this, but I did appreciate the memo from Corey. It kind of told me everything I need to know, and actually that's true of most of or all the memos we've got tonight relative to articles. So thank you, Nick, and thank you to all of the departments.
So I guess my only comment was in the memo, and I appreciate the memo. It just says the feasibility study is expected to be completed in 2021, at which point the town will have the opportunity to reevaluate its commitment to the project and to determine if we want to move forward. I guess that kind of confused me a little bit, because it was my understanding that we are planning to move forward.
Yeah, I think
Already.
what he means by that is, and I think it's early 2021 that should be completed, the feasibility study.
Okay,
But we're gonna need some authorization to borrow, because we do have to pay some share of that dredging.
okay,
But I think that's what he means by that. There'll be another article in the spring,
okay,
so we can pay our share of the dredging.
okay. Just coming back to ask for a further financial contribution to the project. Okay.
And after the feasibility study, what can we tell people about a timetable? Will there be a timetable that we can actually say sometime in late 2021 they're actually going to start dredging?
I can find that out for you, Joe. Geez, you guys are asking a lot of questions tonight.
Well, we're getting paid.
Chuck's not even here.
Yeah. Let me, I'll touch base with Corey on that, and I'll get something to Joe with an anticipated schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Do you know how many acres it is?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm just like the ballpark figure at 120 grand per acre. I'm wondering how big it is.
Right,
3 or 4 acres?
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Is it?
yeah,
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
not important. Just curious.
good question.
And the dredging will only be part of the lake too. It won't be
Oh, yeah.
From what I understand, won't be over by the railroad track.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
I
Okay,
mean, if it's helpful for the board, I can kind of get a project summary again to you guys. I know it's been talked about for a long time.
right.
We have new board members, so if you would like, we can kind of get Corey to summarize it again in memo form to Joe, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, following that article, Steve Venuti had submitted a very detailed memo regarding the appropriation of bond, the ban excess premium, and exactly how that works. Again, if the board has questions on specifics on that, we do have Steve that would be available to provide a little bit more detail on it.
So does the town just need to vote to apply the premium where it's going to be applied?
Correct.
Okay.
I didn't have any questions.
No.
Yeah.
Great memo, thank you.
With the CPC, and the board had actually, I believe we had seen and received the information for this Article H for the preservation of the fountain that's in front of the depot. So CPC did vote to approve that project for funding. Their budget is $9,500 coming from the Historic Preservation Reserve. I didn't, because we had already had that presentation, I felt that presentation was sufficient, so.
Yep.
Agreed.
Article I think we're somewhat familiar with this project for the acquisition of 119 to Hattawan. I can speak a little bit more for the following Article J. I also do have, if the board had any questions.
Madam Chair, and Joe, if you don't mind my interrupting.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, just back on Article I, obviously, while we're still in negotiation, I think we probably should just explain to the public why we're not talking about this in more detail. We're still in negotiation with the other party, so we really, I think we look forward to talking to it in more detail, but we really can't yet until we resolve that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Article J, which are articles that the Personnel Board had proposed for the warrant. From a background perspective, the Personnel Board was making these proposals. Basically, some of them are, or two of them are housekeeping, i.e. Bringing some wages up to minimum wage, bringing up the starting salary so it's above a certain amount on a way that we're processing or moving towards meeting minimum wage. Does allow for us to gradually do these changes. And basically for annual town meeting, we're also then going to be proposing it for the following year. But this is the first step in sort of gradually raising the starting wage so we can achieve minimum wage. Another one is basically just clarifying process for working out of grade. Another one is adding in specific positions that reflect recent changes to the town treasurer's position. So it's town treasurer, assistant finance director, changing the assistant treasurer position, which is assistant treasurer and HR administrator, to separate out the assistant treasurer component from the human resource manager component. And then the last proposed change is to clarify how holiday pay is calculated. When we move to Munis, Munis calculates hours, time on an hourly basis, versus previously it was a daily basis. So whatever was considered a day previously, when we moved to Munis, when you think about having 11 holidays, it converts it for a full-time employee to 8 hours a day, 11 holidays, 88 hours. When you apply that to people who then are working differently and work maybe a longer shift on a Monday, they get that day as a holiday, but they're actually, if they work 10 hours, that 88 hours is being deducted by 10 hours. So at some point, we end up in a deficit, and it's really just on the books as far as it's not like we're running into a realm so we can't balance the books. Just there are positions that run into a negative balance compared to others that maybe don't even get as many hours that are holiday, because maybe their hours are shifted towards the end of the week versus the beginning of the week, where a lot of the holidays fall on a Monday. So this language is proposed to reflect how the town and the personnel board felt this is how it always should have been applied, where it's basically prorated, so that if someone was a part-time employee working 20 hours a week, they worked more on a holiday. When they got that holiday off, it was based off of a prorated amount. So this was to address how we thought the system was being applied when we switched to Munis, but then also to make sure that there was a level of consistency and fairness across different positions.
Okay.
If the board, we do have the chair of the personnel board available if you had additional questions on that one.
Okay. Does anyone have, any members of the board have any questions? I don't. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next slate of articles is basically the water and sewer articles. This is where, in order, we have the PFAS that Nick Lawler asked that we move to the front. So when we adopt the slate, we just want to make sure that Article N is placed ahead of the smart sewer design funding project when we approve that order. So we do have Nick again. He can join us for a third time. He's ready for these. He provided a little bit of an update, not only at last week's meeting, but then also for the sewer working group update. So if there's a specific question on either Kay or Kay, Nick had already mentioned that water commissioners are meeting on Wednesday, so then they'll get some language to us for consideration on Monday. The home rule petition, that's just a placeholder in case we needed it. So just so that the board knows, I met Senator Eldridge out in the parking lot at about 5:30 to hand deliver our letter of support so that he can bring it and read it as part of the third reading, which is what we needed to get past our legislative hurdles.
Okay.
So that this will hopefully just be passing right over. But it's just in case, we just don't want to have to go back and wait for another town meeting in case something happened.
Right. Okay. I don't have any, I mean, I think we've been getting, receiving some excellent updates on this in the past couple meetings. Does any board members have any question for the sewer commissioner or Nick while he's on the call?
Nope.
Okay.
The ambulance, that also, we had the presentation about a month ago from Fire Chief Wadzinski, and then we had that discussion with the finance director as far as leasing versus borrowing. So this reflects what the board had felt, whatever was in the best interest, and the best interest was to basically borrow, especially at today's rates, rather than a lease to buy type situation.
Okay.
The Article Q within your packet was a memo from Mayor Toolhill regarding the background for this and planning board process in approving or having a hearing on this. It's not a very, from a zoning perspective, it's not a very large article. It amends existing language. It does put in place the process for the select board to consider applications within the right-of-way. Outside of the right-of-way would maintain process with the planning board. But there are design and aesthetic standards, technical and aesthetic standards for small cell siting that LELWD has published. And in assisting with this article, the select board, it would be recommended that we adopt policies to basically identify how we're going to administer this. And for example, if an application complied with the technical and aesthetic standards for small cell siting, we could actually hand that off so that it's just a permit straight with the building department. And that the only thing we're dealing with is when someone does not want to abide by those standards and is looking for some form of relief.
Okay.
And that's something that as we move forward, should it pass, we can develop those rules and regulations, many of which, we are easily able to piggyback off of language from planning as far as providing us guidance.
Okay.
And I do have Marn on the line as well. I don't have as much history as far as I know that Light and Water as well as planning, and there was a small cell working group as well that had been meeting a year and a half ago. Town council was involved and helped pull this bylaw across the finish line.
Okay. Okay, would the board like to hear from Maren, or do you have any questions for her on this?
Appreciate the background information.
I read through the standards, they're great.
Yeah. Yep. Mr. Knox?
No, we talked about that small working group over a year ago. And they were saying back then 5G wouldn't be in Littleton for a while to come anyway, so.
Yeah.
So might as well get taken care of ahead of time, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great.
The next article, which is the board had discussed at the last meeting with language that Chair Napoli had pulled together for the dog leash. This then is within line of the existing bylaw language showing what would be striked and what would be amended to those existing provisions.
Okay.
So the letter under section B, those are all being added, is that
Correct.
correct? And
Yeah.
then just the sentence, clothes are slightly behind and when off leash, that's the other thing that's being added?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That's great. I'm glad we clarified that.
I had to read it a couple times. I'm like, wait a minute. So, yeah, it looks great.
So, Article S is the road acceptances. So we have, coming up on the 28th, the layout hearing for those four developments. They have submitted plans, butter notices have gone out. I've received a couple of requests for copies of the plans. Thankfully, we have them electronically. However, and this is where we may need Maren as far as being able to just explain where they are in the planning board process. It's my understanding that I believe 2 of these are finalizing some of their plans, one of which is also still going to be in front of the planning board, I believe, beginning of October, to finalize with peer review comments. So within the planning board's report, we usually have our motions as well as recommendations. This may be one that we may be going into special town meeting with either a recommendation on town meeting floor or a separate handout that then is available with recommendations, depending on the final results of the layout hearing that's scheduled for the 28th and any subsequent planning board meeting.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Nope.
On that one? Okay.
And then the last two, Maren had prepared a memo on these, detailing also plans and color coding what parcels were being considered. The parcel that there was a question as far as with the existing house, that would be covered under Article U, and would be identified as general municipal purposes, so that then we can identify what we wanted to do with that after. Under Durkee Farm Estates, Article T, those end up being all for open space purchases.
Okay, so I do.
Purposes.
Okay,
Sorry.
so, yeah, is Maren still on the call?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so maybe she can walk me through this. I just want to make sure, because we had talked about the Durkee farmhouse, and the board had asked for the map, so I appreciate seeing the map of the parcels, that's helpful.
And I need clarification on the maps too, because I think K abuts the other property, right? And we have
Right.
I can't see how this development hooks up to the,
I had exactly the same problem. The roads don't match.
don't match.
Yeah, I can't figure out. I assume X is above B, but
And there seems to be red seed away on this map, doesn't even show up on
right.
the other one.
I totally understand, especially because being a phased, or at least even though they may be the same development team, their approvals were separate, so they weren't fully phased, though they clearly are a phase 1 and 2. And I do see that Maren is available. I can also try to pull this up online and share the screen so that everyone can be sort of working from the same plan.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. Okay. Maren, can you hear us?
Right, I certainly can. So perhaps if you go to the map that's just before that one, it's more of an overview. Yeah, there you go. And that was taken from our GIS.
Oh, I see X. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, and I think Joe did a very good job of explaining the difficulties in the subdivision layout plans, where Durkee was approved well before the K property became available for sale. You don't see the connections in the plans that he was just showing.
Okay, Maren, so is this the deeding of the Durkee farmhouse and the barn included in this?
No, this does not include the farmhouse and the barn. This includes, for Durkee, it includes open space parcels A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay,
Since that was an open space subdivision, the lots were smaller, houses a little more closely clustered together, and these open space parcels are to be deeded to the town, in this case for open space and or recreation purposes.
okay,
Hay Estates, when that parcel first became available for sale, it was under chapter 61A, if I recall, and the the select board waived the right of first refusal in return for getting parcel X. And so now K development is nearing completion, and the developer is ready to turn parcel X over to the town. Significant wetland areas in that space. And I don't believe the host community agreement stipulated what use that property was for. And then in the lower left-hand corner, where it says Lot 1, That's the, that's not covered in this town meeting. That's the location of the Jerky Farmhouse and Barn.
Okay. So where's the 5 acres that was, I thought was being transferred along with the farmhouse and the barn? Is that X?
No, that's lot 1.
It's all in one, okay.
Exactly.
All right, so we're not addressing that this town meeting.
Correct. The developer is allowing the Affordable Housing Trust, according to the town, the time to decide what it is that we're looking to do with that property.
Okay, so so how, if we knew what we wanted to do with that property today, could we include it in this town meeting, or we're just not there yet, we're not ready yet?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
On the paved development, there is one roadway that won't be 100% complete. That part of the Douglas Road is not included in the street acceptances. So the town's acceptance of that is still tied to getting the parcel, getting lot 1 donated to the town. So the town still does have some leverage.
Okay.
So, and Maren, when you say what's left, it's this portion down here?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So is it anticipated we could close that loop for Springtown meeting?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Can we go back to the map that has the blue on it? A question for you, Maren. That blue line that runs across the top of the map all the way out back, is that the access way that will take us from Littleton town property all the way through?
Eventually, yes. Yes.
Yeah, right there.
Mm-hmm.
That will connect to where? To?
I think Littleton Town Forest.
Oh, the one off of
Howard Avenue. So we would have
okay.
access
I see.
to the train depot. If someone wanted to ride a bike all the way through someday, they could cut right through there.
Okay.
Right. So actually, there is an easement between the lots. I can't see the numbers. I think it's 38, along the lot line of 38 that takes, there is an additional easement there.
Okay.
So that eventually, a person on a bicycle could access this roadway system and this roadway system to the commuter rail system.
It continues straight, like Red Cedar Way continues, yeah, okay, got it.
Okay. All right, great. Any other questions from the board? That was helpful, Maren, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Oh, we've got a public hearing. Do we need to open for the public hearing, Mr. Layden?
Let me just,
It's
I
on
mean,
the agenda.
we probably only have a few more minutes, and I don't see them here yet.
Okay, perfect. All right, good. Yep, we can keep going.
You
So-
want to wrap up on the warrant then,
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, can I just ask 2 questions of you?
Absolutely.
All right, one is I assume you've added up how many articles there are, and so you have a number for that for the motion.
20.
What's that there?
20.
And we are gonna number them, right, not letter them?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. And so the second question is do you have are you aware of what the water commissioners were looking for in terms of the ordering they would like their articles to be in?
Let me just open up.
I think that was the only issue in terms of ordering that I can recall coming up.
The only request for the order was basically that the PFAS be first.
In front of the sewer, right?
Correct. And, so one of the options because when we look at order, if we bump the PFAS first, then the next article is the smart sewer. So we'd have two funding request articles back to back.
Right.
Question ends up, is that what the board would like, or would you just like to essentially swap their places so that out of the 5 water/sewer articles, the smart sewer design becomes 5th. Sorry, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it becomes 4th. Let me back up. Do we want to swap? So PFAS becomes first, and then the funding for smart sewer becomes 4th.
Yeah. Well, we didn't discuss that, the logistics of that. I think what you just stated a moment ago makes most sense to my mind. That's, we always try to lump like articles together, so honoring their request to have one in front of the other, and then grouping the 2 funding articles next to each other makes sense to me.
That's fine with
Maybe
me.
before I read a motion, Madam Chair, we probably ought to see whether the board members are all on board with going forward with all the articles as we just had them on the left. I am.
Yeah,
I'm all set.
I am, yep.
So then essentially, if the middle part of the motion was to order the articles in sequential order with the exception that Article N be placed in front of the Littleton Commons Smart Sewer Design article, that essentially is what the board would like.
Okay, and article, let me just be consistent. I can make that motion with that change. Article N would be in front of Article what?
K.
K? Okay, great. All right, then let me take a whack at this, Joe, and see if it sounds correct to you. Then I'll move that the select board vote to insert Articles 1 through 20 on the special town meeting warrant, inserting Article N in front of Article K from the draft, and to approve the special town warrant.
Correct.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further comments from the board? All those in favor, Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. So the motion is approved as dictated by Selectman Glavy. All right, great. So now we have the public hearing. Fallon's Wine and Spirits liquor license to consider cancellation under Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 77.
I was just verifying both phone because for the public, the continuation of the public hearing, Diane had provided my cell phone in case they ran into problems connecting to Zoom, email, and I do not see them in Zoom at this time as an attendee. I have not received a call, I've not received a text or an email.
Okay. All right, great. So do we need to go into public hearing though, correct?
Correct.
Need to open it?
Yep.
Do we want to waive the reading of the notice?
Sorry, I should have clarified, because this is continued, we had taken care of that, and we continued action on this to tonight.
Okay, perfect. All right, good. Okay, so this is a continuation, this is the second continuation of
Yes.
hearing this, yep. So, I mean, I think the board recalls the history of this, and we've continued it now for the second time. So I don't know what's the favor of the board to, for action going forward. We can continue it again, or we can take action on the license currently held.
I recall that last time we talked about this, we discussed that this was the last extension, absent some other information from the license holder, which doesn't seem to be forthcoming tonight.
Right, right. We've certainly done our
Madam Chair, if I might.
diligence. Yeah, certainly, Mr. Glavy.
Yeah, I just want to make 2 points. One is that, I think it's worth noting that we would go the extra mile if anything was COVID related, but this isn't a business that would be affected by that. They were, they would have been able to be open during that whole time period and or transfer a license if that was their pleasure. Package stores have been doing bang up business, so
Right.
that's not that's not a consideration. I don't think would be harsh to act on at this time. And then this underscored the point I made before too. I know it's permissible under the law to treat these licenses as a commodity that can be sold, but we've never practiced that way here in Littleton. We have a much smaller overall number of licenses, so we've kind of been strategic about where we issue them so that essentially they're not all in one part of the town, and different parts of the town have access to the products they sell under license. And anybody who gets the license has to come back to us for reapproval anyway. So I think we've been very amenable to these folks. I give them a long time to remedy this situation. They haven't done it, and if we cancel the license, then it goes back into our pot of available licenses that other people can actually use, to service the town. So that would be my that's the action I would favor.
Okay. I agree with that. Any other comments from the board?
No, I agree. We've certainly given it a very good opportunity for him to rectify it or sell it or whatever, and we've gone out of our way and nothing's happened, so.
Right. Okay, great. We ready for a motion?
Yeah, we've got one. Joe anticipated this, and he had two motions ready. So I'll move that the board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 77, to cancel the license held by Udacha Inc., doing business as Fallon's Wine and Spirits.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye, and the motion is approved as stated by Selectman Glavy. All right, great. So now we are on to Town Administrator update.
Just want to provide just a follow-up update on how things are going here in Town Hall. Last week may have been the surge as far as what we saw for visitors to Town Hall at about 40. We're down to about 28. Yes, there was a Monday holiday. Again, the highest visiting locations are Town Clerk and Building Department, which is what we all expect. And overall, I think it's going well. I think a lot of people, especially staff, also appreciate having Alex. He's our greeter, welcoming people to Town Hall, providing directions. Yeah, he's a very nice gentleman.
He is.
And providing assistance as well, and letting people also know that, so they don't have to trek up 3 flights of stairs if the building commissioner is out on a site inspection. He's able to relay to people, here you can call, or here's where he'll be back. So people, staff, do check in with him, let them know if they are leaving, and in case someone stops by. So it actually is, it's been nice.
Yeah.
As was stated at the beginning of the meeting, with EHS, we are looking at how we can continue to operate some of our programs. There's a lot of things we need to give to consideration and make sure that we're being mindful as far as potential impacts and risks to the community and to the town, financial as well as health-wise. So we're continuing to examine some of our existing processes and make sure that the town is protected, especially as we move forward in the fall and people start doing more things inside. Other things, basically we're just chugging along for special town meeting. Met with Tim Goddard today to talk about the warrant, but then also to talk about special town meeting coming up in October. And we'll be setting up staff level meetings to go over logistics. Because we had done such a good job in the spring, it's really just verifying that we're all on the same page as far as timing, anything that we need some of our vendors to do. So we're starting that process as well, and also with finalizing the report, which now having a formal order of articles will make it a lot easier to finish the formatting, and the end of the month, we're going to be having our the select board. I'll bring our candidate for the human resource manager for consideration and review by the board. So that's moving along.
Okay.
Today we had additional interviews for the town treasurer, assistant finance director, and more are planned for the other financial positions. So we're also chugging along on filling some of the vacancies that we currently have in town hall.
Great, excellent, thank you. Hopefully we'll have nice weather for town meeting. We lucked out in the spring certainly, so.
Yes.
It's going to be similar or the same as the last town meeting.
From a format standpoint?
Yeah,
yes.
like setup and layout.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from the board? No?
Nope.
Okay. Good. I think that's it.
On a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair?
Please.
Boy, I gotta, before I do that, I got a comment. Boy, you're bringing them on budget and ahead of time.
Right? Thank you, Mr. Glady, for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
All right, and Joe's doing a great job too. So a motion that we adjourn?
Second?
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor? Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. Glavy? And Cindy Napoli is aye. Good night. That concludes the select board meeting for this evening, and our next meeting is when?
Next Monday.
Next Monday. We will be back. Good night. Thank you.
Aye.